Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Ray, and welcome to the RayWenderlich.com podcast. In this podcast, we'll keep you up to date with the latest app development tech talk. Now, here are your hosts, Drew Freeman and Susannah Gupta.
Thanks, Ray. This is the RayWenderlich.com podcast. Welcome to episode 11 for season 12. Now, this episode was recorded on Thursday, the 31st of March, 2022, for release on the 6th of April, 2022. I'm your host, Drew Freeman, along with my co-host, Susannah Gupta.
Thanks, Drew. This is the point in the introduction where we've often said something clever about sponsorship. Today, we will continue as we did in the last episode, simply by saying something straight up and sincere. At the time of this recording, it's 5 weeks from February 24th, 2022, when Russia invaded the sovereign country of Ukraine. Here at RayWenderlich.com, we're a group of over 300 developers from countries all around the world, including Ukraine and also including Russia. Our hearts are with everyone affected by this terrible war, including our colleagues and you, our listeners. You'll continue to find a list of ways to stand with Ukraine in the show notes for as long as this is needed. And now, on with the show.
Thanks, Suze. As we end the season, it is time to turn the tables on ourselves. And today, the lens, or at least the microphone, will be on my amazing co-host, Susannah. She, however, is going to attempt to cleverly deflect that focus and instead give our listeners a look behind the scenes here at RayWenderlich.com. Susannah, it is always a treasure to have you on the show.
Thank you very much.
So obviously, I have all of the notes that you have compiled and put together. And of course, I will be skipping around in ways that will completely keep everybody off guard. I have to ask this right off the bat because we talk about this before every episode, or at least we have been recently. How is the puppy?
Oh my gosh. So several weeks ago, and I actually totted up how many weeks it was because I've seen when you adopt a pre-owned dog that there are these milestones: 3 days, 3 weeks, 3 months. In the first 3 days, you're supposed to expect that your dog will be nervous and just like kind of freaked out because they're in a new environment. Okay, that makes sense. Okay. 3 weeks is when the dog, who maybe appeared to be settling in, will start to show its true canine colors and its problem behaviors will emerge. And I will say, with my dog Daisy, kind of the problem behaviors were not hidden at all, but definitely more so at 3 weeks. And then at 3 months, it's supposed to feel like this was always your dog. Everything's all simpatico, right? So we're at 7 weeks, and she's still a challenge. She's a very anxious little beast. Very pretty, very pretty. She's a designer dog, Cavachon, part King Charles Cavalier Spaniel and part Bichon Frise. So soft, loves cuddles. She has had a lot of turmoil in her life, but she started off spoiled. I noticed I came home from a dinner out at which someone had given me a present last night. So I came home with this gift bag with, like wrapping paper coming out the top. And I brought it in, and we both realized, my husband and I, this dog has been given gift bags before because she thought this was for her. And she put her pretty little nose in the bag and was sniffing around for the dog toy. It wasn't a dog toy. It was a box of cake mix that somebody was thanking me for, making them dinner before. And I thought that was just wild. But so I'd like to say we're settling in, but the truth is it's up and down. And a senior dog is not less work than a puppy. It just depends.
Well, the good news is that we have WWDC and Google I/O coming up, so we can continue to still track the dog.
Yes, exactly. So we will keep tracking her. Thank you for asking.
So one of the questions you've been asking people this season is their origin story. Let's talk about what you were working on before Ray Wenderlich and how you discovered Ray Wenderlich.
So before Ray Wenderlich, and still now, okay, I work I'm trying to explain this to people. I say, well, I'm a software team consultant Because different than many of the people here at Ray Wenderlich who work as content creators, I am not primarily a dev. I can do software development, but I do it slowly and poorly, although with a lot of enthusiasm. So it would not be the best use of a company's money or time to pay me exclusively to be a dev. So I was working for a company that makes K through 12 learning software as a subscription-based website, and that company is the maker of Me Academy and Mia Prep Online High School. They're called Mia Plaza, and so I'm actually an equity holder in the company, and very
That's
close
nice.
friends with the management team, and was part of the leadership team there. And I've stepped away from that, but wish it well. My God, did I learn a lot. And then I work with a little 4-person team that makes really high quality, like artisanal Mac OS software. And we've got one iOS app too. So, and I do marketing and product management and generally cause trouble there. So,
Have you tried your hand at coding at all this season?
so this season, other than doing tutorials, which is what led me here, is knowing what great tutorials we have here and then thinking, wait, there's a way I could get this for free. And I'll talk more about that later. So I've been doing some of the stuff in our content, and I have a couple apps that are honestly kind of stalled out because I've been doing other stuff that are my, things I'd like to get in the store
Mm-hmm.
at some point.
So, what was the contact that ran you into RayWenderlich.com? Was it a tutorial you found online?
I can't remember. So I've done multiple RayWenderlich.com tutorials, and I've done multiple tutorials before joining here. So yes, it definitely was a tutorial. And it was somehow, I came in with this sense of knowing, a feeling like, oh, they're like the best. Like it's super high quality stuff. And I think it is because I used it. And although I am other than an expert developer, I mean, this is part of the value proposition, right? You can come in even as a quite beginning dev and access free learning materials and come out with something that works. And wow, that's so validating and cool.
Mm-hmm.
And
Very
honestly,
much
it's
so.
just like, it's like, I don't know. I super love software. I love software development. I love the process. And I think of this as like the tutorials are like little presents out there with, like there's toys with every single one. I know when we say something's a toy app, we mean something derogatory by that. But to me, it's like, wow, this is so exciting because you can get this tutorial and then there's source code for a working app that you can improve.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. It's I can't help but use the term toys because well, WWDC, when that comes up, that's always like my version of Christmas, because that's when I get to that's when they unwrap all the fun new toys to play with.
it's mind blowing, truly.
All right, so now you've done tutorials and you've also worked on books here. Can you give me a quick list of things you've worked on?
So, in addition to the podcast, the main thing, so I came in at this, what is one of the 2 entry level roles here, which is I came in as a technical editor, and I continue to work on, so we have content streams or pillars, most of which are technical, but we may be offering some more professional growth content in the future. So I came in as an editor on iOS. I edited, I don't know, a bunch of tutorials. And then the gentleman who was running that team said, do you want to be a final pass editor? And I thought, oh my God, are they promoting me? Why? This is terrifying. No, I don't think so. I don't think I can do that. And he's like, yeah, you can. Go ahead. Do it, do it, do it. And so I'm now a final pass editor, and we can talk more about what that means. And there's just, I mean, we both share this, like there's so much fun stuff you get to work on. So I'm continually put outside my technical comfort zone, and I love it because I'm continually learning stuff. And then I was on a book project that was reconsidered, and we didn't end up deciding to go forward with that book. And I am now in the process of a new book project that I'm not allowed to talk about, but hopefully we will have. So yes, I work on
There's
books,
always
but I
we've
don't have a
always got
list
to
of published books.
we've always got to surprise people. All right, so
Yes.
you've used the term tech editor and final pass editor, and I think a lot of people think when you say editor, you're the person making sure all the commas are in the right place and all the spelling is correct. But what is tech editing versus what you'd normally think of as editing? What does that entail?
And I thought that too, right? And when I first learned about this opportunity, about like, oh, maybe I could come work here, I thought, well, I'm actually super good at putting in commas. It's like a super specialty of mine. So I'm like, I'll be a comma person. But tech editing is another thing that I'm really good at and love. And a lot of people don't love this, but it's QA. Tech editing is QA. So it is somebody has written a set of instructions and put together some software, and you test that the instructions and the software both work. And I mean, you test it in rigorous detail and make sure every single thing works. And then, um, and then you're responsible for fixing both, right? So that's often a heavy lift for me. And I sometimes need to ask for help in like sending things back to the author to say, okay, your app sometimes doesn't even work at all. Okay. And sometimes it's broken in certain ways. And sometimes it's just that the instructions don't work. But it's great fun if you like detailed work and you like quality assurance. And I've done quality assurance elsewhere, and I love it because breaking things is really fun.
Well, I think quality assurance is a great way to put it because I know the first thing I do when I get one of the books is I go through the exercises and every now and then I'll sit there and go, I'm not quite sure I'm getting this, or I'm not quite sure this is working properly. And I guess in a way, then that's something that I I deem to say could have used better tech editing, um, but it's I mean everybody's going to be doing the same thing when that book comes out, so it's good to know that you're effectively the first line of defense.
I think it's inherently challenging, especially on books, because books have a longer development cycle that because the technology is always moving, right?
Hmm.
So it could be correct at the time the author wrote it and correct at the time the technical editor checked it. And then by the time you, the reader, are, downloading the source code and running it in a totally different version of Xcode, it doesn't work quite right. And I think, depending on the technology stack, we're talking iOS here, but I know like on the Flutter team, like Flutters and its dev tools are constantly changing. And I had that experience like trying to get like just the very beginning parts of, like the hello world version of the Flutter app going,
Hmm.
that it changed just slightly from when they wrote it, just because it changes so fast. So that's hard to do. But a point that's made here, and I think we've probably felt it, I know I certainly have, is if you're going through as the reader, as the learner, and you follow the steps and it doesn't work, you don't think, oh, the QA person, she
Yeah.
screwed up. You think, oh, I'm dumb, or oh, this isn't for me. I can't learn whatever it was that you were trying to learn. It's too hard. I'll go away from it. So it's really, really important to keep the faith of the reader and
And
write and document in such a way that we do that.
in a rare case, the reader will go, I think I found a solution to make this work. And then they'll actually go to the forums and we'll have errata on the book. Is that how
Yeah,
that's
which is
pronounced?
fabulous.
I've never,
I think so.
errata,
Errata,
errata. I don't know.
the
Um,
mistakes.
mistakes. So that's the technical editor. What does the final pass editor do?
So one of the things that's so cool here, okay, and as somebody, I've done so much content creation over many years of working in the industry because there was other stuff I was doing long before Apparent Software and Mia Plaza. So every tutorial that we publish goes through 3 editing passes. It goes through the tech edit that I described. It goes through, we talked about putting in the commas, making things read well, read clearly, making it so the language is just transparent and gets the meaning across and doesn't create some kind of dissonance where errors are making you unable to focus on the learning. Okay. That's the English language editor. Then there's one last editing step. There's actually two, but the one that's labeled a last editing step is the final pass editor. And she or he goes through and does another full read and test and looks back at the final pass editor is involved with a piece throughout the entire life cycle of the piece. So we get to see it from as soon as a brief, like here's what you should write about and here's the references you should use, okay, is assigned to an author, then that author will put together an outline. We look at their outline and look back at the brief and ask them questions if they missed anything. And then they put together a sample app. We get to play with it. We send it back if it doesn't work or is missing certain things that are part of our standards that make things consistent and high quality. And we get to be involved every step of the way. And then the final step is this one more really thorough hands-on quality assurance and language. And is it fun? We have an internal quality mnemonic. We say, does it have cred? Is it correct? Is it readable? Is it educational? Is it deep? And so the final pass editor is checking for all those things. And then we hand it over. Each content stream has a team lead. We hand it over to the team lead. And I think, although I don't know, but it does seem this way for the two team leads I've worked under since I've been here, I think they do that all again. So, I mean, a lot of work goes into these things.
And we talked about briefly pillars. And these are the technologies that are the primarily focuses that we have in there. And there seem to be an increasing number of pillars. I remember
Yes.
when the site was specifically iOS, and then it picked up Android, and now it's doing Flutter as well. So there are
And server-side Swift
and server
and
side
game
Swift now
tech.
and game tech. So there is definitely a growth, and we talked about and we actually did an entire season on soft skills with
And yeah,
living
and I
by the
think we're going to
code.
see
So
that. I think we're going to see increasingly an awareness of, let's develop useful, actionable, like what people expect from raywunderlich.com is knowledge they can take away and apply in their professional lives elsewhere. So what might that look like for professional growth?
and one of the nice things about the site is that while there is a subscription for um, a lot of the material on the site, there is a lot of material that you get without paying for anything on the site.
Yeah, the amount
Um,
of value that's in each of these tutorials, the tutorials are all free, and everything I've described, like all this work we're all putting in as, this staple of content creators all around the world, this is almost exclusively on these free tutorials. So yeah, that's pretty amazing. Each
and then
one of which, each technical one comes with an app. And I looked this up before coming on today because I was curious about it. And it looks to me, I'm curious if this is your read of it too. It looks to me like as long as you include that copyright at the top, I think you can use the source code in your own apps. You
mhm.
can't use it to create competing learning content, right? You can't
No,
directly compete
no,
with what we're trying to do here because that would be
no. But
crazy.
if there's a good model or a good example of combined to process some data, then there's no reason that you shouldn't be able to use that. And the copyright notice that's in the top of most of this of all the source code is very complete and very easy to work with.
I mean, I think that's amazing, honestly. And that's part of what's there for free,
And we
right?
didn't even mention the video courses.
Yes.
There are video
So
courses, there are books, there are tutorials. Um, And those video courses, the videos used to be a 6 to 12 minute video, and now the video courses you will find are 2 to 5 hours worth of material to take you through the process of something very technical. There are shorter tutorials, but what I'm saying is they're very comprehensive video courses now available as well.
Yeah, and just fun stuff. Like I think we have a video course on how to make Instagram, and there are video courses on how to use the mapping API. And I mean, there's a huge number of them. And also, we offer this so, like, let's say you're a complete newbie, because of course that's the material I've looked more at, right? You can go through a series of video courses to bring you to where you've got some level of comfort working with Swift and Swift UI, or you can do that in books. And you can get some good beginnings just from the free tutorials. And typically with the video courses, we've got a couple videos at the start unlocked so you can
Mhm.
get your feet under you and assess whether it's worth it to you to continue, you know.
So since we've turned this thing into why is rw.com so great? Obviously, if there are people out there who want to join, the first question is why, if there's so much going on already.
Why
And
would you join?
yes, why
Okay,
would
well,
you want to
so
jump in?
so I
And I
think what's
guess,
most compelling for a lot of people, and I know I'm not the only person who joined for this reason, is if you are accepted through the tryout process, then you get free access to all this stuff.
yeah,
And it is a massive amount of stuff. So free stuff.
yeah. You get the subscription. The as we mentioned at the top, there are over 300 people working as contributors to this massive endeavor, and they are international. As you've listened to on the show over the seasons, we've had people come in from Spain, we've had people come in from South America, we've had people come in from Western Europe. Um, Australia is one of my favorite ones to try to schedule. Um, but
India,
India, of course.
Singapore.
Um, yes, we can keep listing them too. And let me tell you, from a from a podcast point of view, scheduling is sometimes difficult. From a book point of view, there isn't necessarily that immediate need of I need to have you talking with me for an hour and a half.
Oh, but the thing is, for the books, we do a regular book team meeting. That's why Singapore sprang to mind, because I was for a while on a team with somebody in Singapore. And I think, yeah, we had somebody in California and then somebody almost all the way around the globe in Singapore. And wow, was it challenging to find a good weekly time slot for that.
Yeah, but I mean, it's amazing the technology has gotten us to the place where we can do that, and we live on Zoom and Google Meet and all the other things. And there's also as I was beginning to mention, the community has these 300 plus contributors. We also have a Discord that is rather full and vibrant, between the people who are working on projects, the people who are from our boot camps as graduates, people who have just joined the community in general. One of my favorite channels on the Discord is Show Off Your Stuff.
Oh, okay. All right. So I'm not so good at frequenting the outside are just people who work here channels, of which there are a number of interesting channels. But yeah, there's also ones that are part of our community but are not technical. Like, there's like pets and kids ones and all sorts
When
of things.
before the Discord, there was a Slack, which was, I guess, a precursor to Discord, and there was the Friday selfie. And I remember I got into I don't want to say a war with, but a competition with Ray Wenderlich himself. He took a picture. I took a picture of myself looking at the picture of him
Oh, that's
and put
funny.
that one up. And then Ray posted one of he and Vicky looking at the picture of me. And I think we went like 15 pictures deep on that one. But that's the kind of fun camaraderie that exists in the community. And I think that's really wonderful. The connections that I've made here over the past, what is it, 5 years now? Wow.
Well, and
Are
so I'm a
surprising.
year in, and I feel like I'm really struck with how supportive it is, how accessible people are. Um, most people who are part of this community have a full-time gig that is demanding outside of raywonderlick.com. I work part-time outside of this. I'm lucky to have a little bit more time, right? But I've been amazed at how giving people are of their time. And as somebody who doesn't bring as deep a technical level of expertise to things, nobody trashes me for that. And it's I often think of it as like, now I've got to say, it's been years since I've attempted to be active on Stack Overflow as opposed to just search it. But I kind of think we're like the opposite of that. Like, we're sincerely welcoming, and also we're diverse. I'm not the only older woman who's involved in this community, and there are people from everywhere in the world, of all ages, of all backgrounds, and that's really cool to see.
I remember I discovered Ray Wenderlich as an entity from a Stack Overflow question that basically said the solution to your problem can be done through this tutorial on this site. And I was just like,
Mm.
oh my goodness, this is amazing. Then I found out that some of our original contributors were also on Stack Overflow with the thousands of karma points, and it was just like, oh my goodness, you are an unbelievable contributor. And I think that's one of the really wonderful things is that everybody here really loves contributing to knowledge and knowledge growth.
Yes. Yes. I mean, there's some amazing, super knowledgeable people here who are just really kind and generous about sharing what they know.
So what were the first steps in contacting or getting involved with Ray Wenderlich? Because I'm a sort of strange egg in that I got involved by way of the podcast, and that's rare for most people. We've gotten a few
So,
people
did
in
they
that way,
have
but
like a Craigslist ad or something for like they needed a podcaster?
basically the podcast had gone for, was it 6 seasons, and then they decided not to continue it for a while, or the host had decided to move on to something else, and it sort of languished. But Ray was picking up steam again, and he decided it would be nice to somehow get the podcast going again. And I got a chance to meet Ray at one of the RW Dev Cons and just
Ooh.
fell in love with the community. And I said I would love to do something. I'd love to learn how to edit, or I'd love to learn how to write a book or something. I just don't know what. And then the posting came up saying we're looking for a podcaster, and I'm like, well, I worked in radio. I can do something like that. I had no idea what I was talking about. I had never actually done a podcast. I'd only worked in radio.
But it's so perfect.
Yes,
I mean,
when
now looking back, right? I mean, it's been
oh,
6 years, but my God, it's such a perfect fit.
it's been fun. I mean, when I first came on, I was like, I know how to edit shows. I used to use tape editors, and in radio, I used to actually use a razor blade to cut magnetic tape and use Scotch tape to tape it together. And I pulled down Audition from Adobe, and I was like, okay, this is not Photoshop. This is going to be difficult. But after couple of episodes in the first few seasons, taking me the better part of an entire weekend to edit. I've gotten that process down, and somehow you've managed to turn things around and make this about me. It's about you this week, Suze.
I was going to say that when I tell people about podcasting and they're so impressed, like, oh, you're podcasting. And I always explain, no, I just come and talk to people, which I find great fun, especially when there's a guest or we're talking about somebody else's background. And you do the editing. That's the hard part.
The
So
editing is not as bad as you'd think. It's really predominantly making sure that the audio quality is as best as I can make it, which I continue to try to improve on. But mostly, what I try to do is prevent people from talking over each other. So I'll sometimes move things just apart a little bit so you can hear what everybody's saying. While this person's breathing, this person's commenting.
that makes
And while
sense. And I
I'm
realize
breathing, I'm turning the audio down.
we've got coming up a couple live casts, and it'll be
Mhm.
interesting to see what that's like. We probably will talk over each other a bit.
Yeah,
And
the live cast is very different from the podcast, especially because we also have a live audience for that.
yeah,
And the trick to the live cast is keeping it moving, because even though you've got 5 or 6 experts, nobody necessarily knows what they want to say or why they should say anything. And you're like, okay, what do you think about this? Let's come on,
right,
say something.
right. Yeah, that should be fun. That should be a good experience. I think maybe both you and I should challenge ourselves as we go forwards. I have not done any video here, and
Mhm.
I really haven't done any video. And like little screwing around things on my iPhone, a video of my previous dog watching a 4th of July parade. That doesn't really count as expert learning content creation. But I think our video production is as scaffolded as the rest of
Mhm.
our content creation here. So I think that'd be a good challenge for us. So you'd asked, how did I end up here, essentially? So I
Yes.
saw a job posting somewhere too, and maybe it was on the site that was like, we're looking for iOS authors. And I thought, probably I can't do that, but I have absolutely nothing to lose. So I applied for the tryout, and it's a 2-step process, 1 step and then a much longer multi-stage step. So the first step is I forget exactly what the app is, but they want you to write a tiny little app and a tiny little bit about it. Okay. And then if you do that coherently, then you get bumped to the next stage. So I think it was a tip calculator, right? And I've
Okay.
explained, like, I am the most beginning level of dev. The dev I've done as part of my work before has been things like fixing strings, fixing how strings display, which actually is not always easy. Um, you know, but primarily fixing user interface stuff. Okay. And some of that actually was web dev where you can look at it in developer tools in the browser, and it's HTML or CSS. I find those much easier. Okay. So, so it damn near killed me writing the tip calculator. Everything they say throughout all of our documentation, like, we want you to be an experienced developer. And I knew I wasn't, but I also know I'm an excellent editor. I can do QA. I'm great. I've been a professional teacher, among other things.
Okay.
So I had everything else, just not the main job requirement. So I passed into the next part of it. And the next part of it is they give you an actual brief from whichever technology pillar you're applying to and say, hey, how would you like to try and write this into an article? And I thought, that's great. I'm so scared. And so I started trying to write into an article, and I came up with an outline, like, I don't know, a 3 or 4 page outline, like really, really overkill, right? Grades were important to me in school. I'm that kind of person, right? I'm a grind. And, and then the outline, they said, oh, you didn't even need to write this much in the outline. That looks great. Start working on the sample app. And that's when I thought, dear God, what have I done here? This is too hard for me. And so I said to the recruiter, who is a lovely woman, and they always say this about recruiters: the recruiter sincerely wants to help you. Okay. And I don't believe that about all recruiters everywhere. Our content team recruiter for RayWenderlich.com she does sincerely want to help you. And she said, I sincerely want to help you. Don't give up. You know what you should do? I want to schedule a chance for you to meet with Ray. And I thought, what? Talk to Ray Wenderlich? Like the human, not the .com, like the actual man? That was terrifying, right? And so I had a video one-on-one with him. And as we both know now, he's a human and he's lovely and friendly and encouraging. And he explained, and he seems fun. And he explained this technical editor role and said, you should try out for that. And I thought, what the heck? And I tried out for that. And that went great. And so here I am.
Yay.
So I think maybe the message there is just apply for whatever and try your best and see where it takes you.
It's again, I also was, I wound up talking to Ray about the podcasting gig, and it seemed to be a really good fit.
Clearly.
And once you fall into a role, they really let you run with it. They say, well, you've done it, so you know what you're doing, and they don't micromanage you.
I will say, so I think the podcasting is clearly a special case.
Mm-hmm.
In general, on content, and I'm saying that because there are other, so we have this parent company, raceware.com, that offers full-time jobs that are outside of content creation. So, and I think they have a different recruiter also. So, but on the content team, we have these two entry-level roles: author, which is what was not right for me, and technical editor. And then once you're in the content development ecosystem, you can go all sorts of places, right? And that's how I ended up here with you. Okay. Mm-hmm. That's how I ended up starting to work on books and being open to writing or working on articles elsewhere outside of the iOS pillar. So it's, once you're in, then this whole richly sparkling reef of other interesting opportunities opens up.
So I know that you've been on a book that wasn't a book, that was almost a book, and now you're on another book that you can't tell me about. But
Sorry.
Let's talk about that process of making the book.
So books are different, but also really scaffolded. And what I mean by that is, so somebody who has written content and helped others, managed others writing content elsewhere, one of the things that's so wonderful about here is we have written instructions. So for pretty much every role that is a content development role here, we have a guide. So on a book, there are different roles on a book similar to on an article. So there are authors, there's a technical editor or more technical editors, there's an English language editor, there's a final pass editor. Every one of those, there's a guide for how to do that. And you read the guide and you follow the steps. And then when you don't understand what they mean or how to do it, there's other people working with you, typically members of the Raceware team. So they're around full time and they will help you. So a book starts with somebody having an idea, obviously. And one of the author team usually will come up with an idea. And I think that goes straight to, I don't know if it goes straight to Ray, it goes somewhere straight to, the management team. And then the person who is in charge of books, who's now a gal named Sandra, will say, okay, let's get a team together. Let's make a proposal. The proposal is an extremely detailed outline that considers competitive research, that considers the audience, and then that gets reviewed by management. And then there are all the stages of outlining chapters, creating sample apps, reviewing those apps, and a pipeline, a content pipeline. It all flows through So there's quality checks at each point, and so you understand what you're doing next. And so the company as a whole knows, when is this thing going to come out? So it's very well managed. And I will say another thing that's great, like, why work here, right? Like, why bother to do this? I have learned skills, even at my advanced age, that I am putting to use elsewhere. Like the very basics of, okay, so if you're going to use, we use Trello here, but if you use like a Kanban style board to manage your content, so how exactly are you doing that? Okay. And like really obvious stuff, but like it's not obvious if you haven't thought about it, is each time a task, a card passes to somebody else in a pipeline, make sure that the new person's name is on the card when it gets to their step and that there's a deadline. So if you're using an automated tool, as we all are now, they get a little alert. Oh, Drew, you need to edit, you know, how to feed and comb kitty cats, and it needs to be done by, April 10th.
Oh,
So
more
just
work.
but just really good management practices. And then, then we have a guide that tells, like, if you've signed up to be a final pass editor, which of course is what I sign up for on book teams too. Because it's a project management role. And that's something that I have a fair amount of industry experience with, is project management. Then it tells you, okay, look at all these cards, look for where they've turned red, and
Mhm.
figure out why. Like very basic how-to advice, because there's an awareness that a lot of people are doing this as their side gig. And if we hope for any success at all, we've got to support them and be really specific about, here's how you do your work.
And to be honest, there's also a guide for the podcast.
I read it, thank God,
And we're
I
fairly
love
straightforward
that.
about that. Yeah, it keeps everybody on track so that if anything happens, somebody should be able to pick the job up and continue working with it. And I think that's one of the really beautiful things, is that we have a path of continuity if it's necessary.
Oh, that's really well put. That's well put and insightful. That's important. And you're asking about books. So another thing that's really cool about books, if you get an opportunity to work on one, is so different than on articles, because books have this longer development path. We have these meetings at the start. There's quite a number of meetings to kick off the book, to work on the proposal, but then it kind of ebbs into meetings once every 2 weeks. But you're getting together online with the same people every couple of weeks. So it's a chance to get to know other people in the ecosystem pretty well. And that's fun. And it draws you together. And then, then you want to do even more work because you like the people. So you're like, oh, it was super fun working with them. And I find that really compelling. And that's why, when we recorded our previous episode together on the podcast, the young man we had on as a guest, Hanan, I had done 2 articles with him before, and he's a fun and wonderful writer and comes up with really fun sample apps. But I'd never met him, because we don't have that, the workflow on the articles doesn't require Zoom meetings, which is okay. I'm not saying like, oh, for something to be good, it has to have a Zoom meeting. I'm not saying that at all. But it is, it is a cool way to get to know people in this really neat community. So that's part of the draw of why somebody might want to work on a book, because it's fun, because you make closer connections.
This is a lot of information to digest. I mean,
Have I sold you on working on books yet?
Everybody has sold me on working on books. It's just, I mean, we talked about the fact that you're part-time and you're doing Ray. I've got the podcast and a full-time gig and my own company that we'll talk about on the next episode. More on that in a few. So I'm kind of spread thin as it is. And I'd love to, if I for some reason ever lose my voice, I definitely will consider doing something else along the lines of final pass editing or the like. I don't know if I've got author's chops in me.
I don't know. I mean, I would say the support for authors here is just truly outstanding. And I bet you do. And I think that if there are people who are listening who think, oh man, like that gal works there and she's already admitted she can barely program a computer. I'm super good at programming. Maybe I should try
Mhm.
and write for them. Yes, you should come try and write for us. And if you're listening and you think, I'm actually really good at programming a computer, but I'm not really comfortable with how well I speak and write English, that's okay. We have got a number of people for whom English is not their first language. And that's
Well,
totally okay. And we will support you.
we discussed that with Kanan last week,
Yeah.
that he's writing books not in his native
Oh,
language, and
he
that
does
is
great.
it's really wonderful. So let's take you away from Ray Wenderlich and the dog
No.
for
Don't
a
take me away
moment.
from Ray Wenderlich.
We're not going to take you completely, but it's more the hands off the keyboard kind of thing. You've recently moved to Arizona
I
from
have.
Chicago, right?
Yes, I'm originally from the Chicago suburbs. I did not live my entire adult life there, but I found myself back there several years ago when my dad was ill and ended up staying a little longer than I expected there. But I have once again escaped Illinois.
So how is Arizona?
Right now, Drew, in just coming up on April, it is perfect. It is gorgeous. It is warm. It is sunny. Things are blooming and growing, and it is idyllic.
I'm
Now, if we were
almost
recording this
jealous.
like 2 months later, I would
It'd
probably
be
have a
warm.
different thing to say. Yes.
See, now we were recording this on the last day of March, on
Yes.
Thursday. Sunday's my birthday, which always comes the first week of April. And my wish always, because I'm in Pennsylvania, is to get snow on my birthday because it's a rare thing. I get it about once every 4 to 7 years.
Okay, I will. If that's your wish, I'll wish for it for you
I know. I
too.
mean, I don't want to, 5 inches of snow. Everything comes to a grinding stop. I just like to see a flurry on my birthday because it's just like it in my way is saying that's it. We're done now. It's
Okay.
springtime.
All right. So like the farewell to winter flurry.
Yes.
Like,
And I
let's
I
celebrate
the
another
farewell
year of Drew and a farewell to winter flurry.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly. So that's coming up this Sunday. We'll see what the weather does. Right now it's what is it? It's like 60 degrees outside, so I'm not really expecting it.
Yeah, that seems
Um,
improbable, but who
And I
knows?
realize with our international audience, I should be converting on the fly now. I should be saying things like it's 60 degrees, which is was it about 15, 17 degrees?
Can you do that? I can't convert on the fly at all. And the other place I work besides here is Canadian, and then so there are two Canadians, a Polish guy, and me, and I'm the only person who doesn't speak Celsius.
I was right. I was 60 degrees is 15 and a half. So
Wow, I'm
well,
impressed.
my girlfriend's up in Canada and I'm constantly trying to do that conversion in my head.
Okay,
So
okay, I should woman up and learn how to do this in my head too.
person up. Doesn't matter what.
Yeah, that's clearly something that's not gender related. Good point.
So what else are you doing for fun now? Now that things have settled down from the move.
Well, I mean, honestly, this is what I do for fun. But what
Mhm.
else I do is I cook a lot. If people look for me on Instagram, my Instagram is basically a baking account. And I don't do that for money, but um I am a copious baker of yeasted breads, especially challah and various delicacies that go with the holidays we celebrate. And I'm into that. It's fun for me. I've shared with people that one way that I coped with all the stress of the pandemic is I would every week, I would write out a meal plan for what I was going to make every day, including breakfasts and lunches for just like me and my husband. And for part of the time, we had some of our adult kids with us. And, just did I need to do that? No, but it was like a sense of control and something like, okay, this little tiny aspect of the world, of my world, that I could bring nurturing and planning to. I felt really good about that. And of course, during right at the start of the pandemic, just getting basic groceries, something we'd never encountered before in the United States, that was challenging. And wow, what crazy times.
Yeah. Target and Costco have become my go-tos for ordering to the house. My grocery has online ordering, but you have to go to the grocery to pick it up. And I'm like, oh, first world problem is now I have to deal with going to my grocery to pick up my groceries.
Well, when you are working full time and also doing this as your side gig, and I happen to know that you still have a kiddo at home, and you're homeschooling, like that's a lot. No,
It is.
that's what Instacart is for. Like that's fantastic that we have access to that and can afford it. It's a wonderful thing. For me, I am originally from my grandparents owned a grocery. I'm super into groceries. I truly love grocery shopping and the experience
Oh,
and
I
the
enjoy
industry.
grocery shopping as well. I like just, going up and down the aisles and going, yeah, do I need this? Yeah, I'll take this.
Yeah, seeing what's
The
new.
running
It's
joke
it's
used to be
fun.
I wouldn't tell my wife, don't let me go into the grocery shop alone because I'll just like load up with everything.
Yes. Yes, I certainly understand that. I'm glad that we're at this part in the pandemic and here in Arizona where we never really were that big on restrictions, I think here, where we can return to the gym. And I've joined a gym that's very close to the house and I'm actually really into that. So I
Hey.
go to various classes and I go to yoga and I'm going to a power flex weightlifting class and I go swimming and it's a blast, honestly. I really like it. I missed group fitness and the motivation that comes with being in a class.
Sadly, the big health center gymnasium that I went to closed down during the pandemic. So I'm
Mm.
currently looking for something that would be a good alternative now that things are beginning to open up again. As I sit in a chair for far too much time.
Now, your Apple Watch is probably telling you, stand up,
Stand up. Yes, it
breathe.
does. Once an hour at 10 till the hour. Yeah, we're gonna still try to bait you into getting one of those Apple Watches.
Oh, I
But
may.
I should ask you because you just said you swapped your laptop and you got one of the M1s.
So I've had this now for, I think it's 2 weeks, and I feel like I'm still getting to know it. And I had this whole elaborate plan where my husband has a really old, I don't, could it be 2011? I think it's 2013, actually. Um, MacBook Air, little bitty. Okay.
Hmm.
And then I had like a 2018 one, and I've got a new M1. Okay. And so the plan is to give him my old one. And then we have a housemate living with us right now and let her use the oldest one. And so I thought, well, let me use my new computer for a while and see if everything seems okay. And then I'll give my husband mine. And then I started doing other things and forgot about that plan. And my old computer is sitting elsewhere in my office. And I realized, okay, I've been using this for a while and everything's fine. So now's the time to actually do the rest of the plan. But I
Yeah,
still want to go back and think about what's better about this besides, okay, the camera's way better. I don't know if you can tell that in the recording, but the
oh
camera's
yeah.
way better. Um, and also, I don't know if you had one of these older MacBook Airs, the one with the keyboard that they stopped making for a reason. Okay, so I
Hmm.
had it very soon after I got it. I actually took it back to the Apple store to have the keyboard repaired, probably replaced. Still was never quite right. Wow, the keyboard is so much. This is the
It's
keyboard I wanted
it's
all
like
along.
butter. It's like
I
butter.
love this keyboard. So,
I don't type on my keyboard that much because I have a 5K screen and my mic here, and then I have a USB hub. So what
Okay.
happens is I actually just take my laptop and I dock it into position, and then I
Okay.
have it's interestingly, I have the Bluetooth keyboard, but I
Okay.
actually keep it wired and charged all the time, and only when I'm swapping out a cable to say charge my ear pods do I untether. But it's
Oh,
nice because
interesting.
it keeps the entire system rather well locked together. And I have all of my notes off on one computer, and then I have my main system where I can look directly ahead. And I also have that penchant for looking directly into the camera rather than looking at the monitor, which makes it look like I'm looking directly at you, and really can be a bit nerve wracking at times. But that comes from a long history of having worked in the industry.
Yeah, no, that's really good. I've been thinking more about that. That's something that I want to also improve on in this coming year is my video call setup, but just the quality of the camera in the new machine is wonderful.
Absolutely beautiful. Well, Susanna, you have done such amazing work this season. As I've said several times throughout the season, there's no way I think I could have gotten through this season without the work that you've done behind the scenes. Every episode, there is a script ready to fly that has an outline of everything we can talk about and our general information, and it's been wonderful. And I cannot thank you enough. Both as being a guest today and as being the co-host this season.
Well, you're welcome. I mean, it's a pleasure and it's truly fun. The reason I got into this, which is true of like every single part of my association with Ray Wenderlich, is I thought, oh, this guy Drew, he sounds so nice. And we have these internal happy hours that are big Zoom calls where we just talk and have fun. And you were in one of those. And I was like, he seems like he'd be so fun to just hang out with. And here I am.
It has been wonderful. Let me see where we are. That is pretty much it. Coming up 2 weeks from now is our final official episode of the season. But of course, we do have Google I/O and we have WWDC coming up. The tables will turn on me, and I'm going to talk about this app and business that I've been starting up. Wrote my own app and decided to get carried away and actually create an entire business surrounding this app. It's one of those true sink or swim kind of things. And we'll talk about the app, and we'll talk about really trying to businessify that process. And we'll see how that one goes. And that's what we'll be talking about in 2 weeks. Google I/O is set for the end of March, is it? Middle of March?
Middle of May, right?
May. I meant May.
Yeah.
It's the month that starts
I
with
want
M.
to say May 11th, maybe.
May
I was
11th?
just writing this down. I think so. And we're going to have a panel of
We're going to have
Android
a panel of Android
experts.
experts, and we're going to talk about what was announced at Google I/O.
Yeah, I'm excited
And
about
then
that.
typically by today, by the
Yeah, May
31st of March, Apple has announced WWDC, and they haven't yet.
I
So
know. I looked
hopefully-
right before we came on together today to
Hopefully
see
there'll be an
what's up.
announcement by the time this episode drops.
Yeah.
We will be covering whatever WWDC announcements are made, as well, with a panel of iOS and other Swift experts.
Yeah,
But
that'll be
that's
exciting.
gonna wrap things up. For Susannah again, who I cannot do the show without, and myself. You can find Susannah online on Twitter at Gupta, on Twitter SUZGUPTA. I am Podcast Drew, DRU, even though I forgot to change my name again on the Zoom call. We'll see you all again in 2 weeks, or we'll hear you all again in 2 weeks. Until then, back to the Emerald Castle. Ray, back to you.
And that's a wrap. Thanks again, everybody, for listening to the RayWenderlich.com podcast. We hope you enjoyed it, and don't forget to leave a rating on iTunes. See you next time.